This video is powered by the pros at Pascal Air Plumbing and Electric. Arkansas owned, Arkansas operated. GoPascal.com.
Whole Hog Sports this morning. Tom, I want to start with the game last night, and I want to go immediately to the set. I was cracking up. David Pollock's sitting there talking about how Georgia has kind of taken over college football. Nick Saban is sitting right next to him on set. How unique was it last night to see Saban kind of sit there and really have to sit through his old defensive coordinator winning back-to-back national championships?
Well, pretty wild, and somebody zoomed in on Saban's face and did a still shot of it while Pollock was talking. He had this stare about him. I mean, you know, hey, when LSU won it in 2019, they were very motivated. They'll be very motivated that Kirby has now, you know, exceeded him in the here and now. I mean, Kirby has a long way to go to reach the legacy name that Nick Saban has. But, you know, it's comparable to, on a different level, John Calipari right now. You know, they just looked outclassed against Bama the other day, and you wonder if, you know, his prime has passed. And I don't think so on Alabama, because they're continuing to recruit very well, and they were right on the brink again this year.
I want to ask you about Kirby Smart, because you just kind of ended there. Dabo Swinney, we know, has won multiple national championships, been to multiple college football playoffs, but this year they kind of went backwards a little bit relative to Clemson's expectations. Why do you think Kirby Smart is trending more towards Nick Saban than he would be Dabo Swinney?
They recruited very well, and if you just look at how many big guys they got, I mean, this is Sam Pittman's kind of blueprint. You get big guys, and big guys wear down littler guys. So it's trying to be across the board. If Arkansas had, I mean, you looked at the size of some of those offensive tackles and defensive tackles, Georgia just has numbers of them. And you look at Arkansas, they have some big guys, and they're trying to continue to get bigger ones. But Rocket Sanders, he's bigger than the average tailback. K.J. Jefferson, bigger than the average quarterback. And the receivers they brought in last year, Landers, Hazelwood, these are bigger, taller guys. And so that's kind of what Georgia's MO is, and they're not going to back away from it. And I think on the whole, if you compare Georgia's roster to Clemson's roster over the last 5 years, you're seeing bigger guys at Georgia.
You know, everyone's got this idea, Tom, that we expand the playoff, we get 12 teams in there. By golly, we're going to see someone other than the SEC at the top. And I'm just more convinced now than ever, particularly after watching last night in the semifinals, you're going to get more SEC teams on that 12-team bracket. And I think you're going to see a year, and it won't take long, where you perhaps could have, if it works out right in the seeding, 4 SEC teams or 3 of the 4 in the semifinals. I don't think the dominance of the SEC is going to be diminished with a 12-team playoff, and I think last night's another argument in the favor of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I can't argue against it, because you could make a case where Tennessee and Alabama, you know, if they get the right pairings and they're healthy enough, that they could have. If you put this year onto a 12-team playoff, you could see where Tennessee and Alabama could have been, you know, right there in the mix. I don't know if there's anybody else I would make the case for, but that would have been probably 4 of your final 8, you know, as long as they're not paired up against each other and things like that.
And LSU would have been somewhere on that bracket, would have been my guess as well. So, you know, the idea that they're, you know, that you're going to limit the SEC, I think is far-fetched and shows you a little bit of the gap that we saw last night. So, you know, we've been talking about some of the math and the roster and, you know, players coming and going, and, you know, there's a late portal period that'll come up. How do you answer when people are questioning you about the roster and where things are at right now, and the hope for next year, the excitement for next year? Season ticket renewals begin right now. Where is the hope? Where is the excitement for the 23 season in your mind?
Well, you do start with a pretty good roster of returnees, including the 2 guys I just mentioned, the tailback and quarterback, and then you supplement yourself at receiver. And I do think that some of the younger guys are going to grow into bigger roles. Stevens, Satania, Jaden Wilson, some of these other guys who did some stuff in the bowl game. But you do have to supplement at linebacker. I mean, like, I would feel pretty confident if I'm Arkansas going into a season with Pooh Paul and Jordan Crook as my starters, but you gotta have some other guys who can supplement. So you have to add there. You have to add receiver. I think I counted it up. 9 DBs have gone into the transfer portal, so you certainly have to replenish at that position as well. So I think the excitement might be from there are returners on the O-line. You have very productive quarterback, tailback. You got linebackers who, should be the leaders on your team. Hopefully Zach Williams will return, and he'll pair with some other D linemen who are coming back, Eric Gregory and so on, Jashad Stewart. It hurts that you lost Jordan Dominic when it looked like he might come back based on his 7.5 sacks. But you need just more bodies in the secondary to, pair with the Hudson Clarks and hopefully McLaughlin, Chavis, and Quincy McAdoo, who really came on. I mean, if you could get a couple of 3 Quincy McAdoos out of this next class and supplement with the transfer talent, then, you have the makings of a good roster.
Well, I think that's the greatest area of need because it's probably also the greatest area of disappointment. Some of that has to do with Catalan's injury, but there's probably no greater area that you fell short of expectations this past year than Arkansas's pass defense and its secondary.
Yeah, it was a point of contention, or a weak area, to be honest.
You expected more, so
you did. And here's the thing: they determined, and I think rightly so, they had to pressure quarterbacks more. So they got 42 sacks, but after how many of those 42 did the opposing team complete a 2nd and long, 3rd and long, and continue their drive? So they've got to combine being able to pressure and sack quarterbacks with getting that 3rd down PBU or some other kind of stop, or forcing the quarterback into another bad throw so you can get off the field. And that's where Travis Williams, he's got to earn his money next year. He's got to find a way to pair what talent Arkansas has with a scheme that will allow them to get off the field more. And I don't think the trends in offensive football are going away. I mean, you look at the Tennessees. I mean, Arkansas and Ole Miss run very, very productive offenses. It's going to be fun to see what Mississippi State comes up with after the air raid. But these offenses, they're hard to keep down. And, Georgia, they're more of the I don't say vanilla, not quite as explosive, but still they were explosive last night, and they did a great job of using motions and TCU's pursuit against them with the misdirection stuff and running motion or the flow of the play in one direction and going the other way, and just tore TCU up with that.
So, Tom, that's the final college football game of the season. We do have some NFL games still to watch. Playoffs start this weekend. Who do you think the best quarterback in the upcoming NFL playoffs is?
Oh, wow. It's funny. Side note, that stat last night, that Stetson Bennett is older than these quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And it was like Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones. It was like five starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So Justin Herbert was one of those. But I don't know. Pat Mahomes has been doing it for a while. I'll go with him. But there's a lot of up-and-comers like Hurts. And, I'm not an Eagles fan, but I do want to see Hurts healthy to go into these playoffs. And I'd like to see a little revival from Dak, to be honest with you. We got a lot of Cowboys fans and friends around here that, maybe it's a good time to see Dallas make another run.
Yeah, they'll play Tampa Bay on the road Monday Night Football. Time I was talking to my roommate, he's dreading that he has to wait till Monday night to watch the Cowboys. He wish he could just get it over with on Saturday or Sunday. I
mean, they haven't done it in 30 years. Win a playoff game on the road. So I don't. Mm-hmm. I mean, we deal hope and we get hopeful, Tom. But I'm not expecting the Cowboys to be around next weekend.
Yeah, well, and how can I leave off Tom Brady? He's the GOAT. He may be playing a little bit past his prime for sure, but I don't think it's right that Tampa Bay gets a home game out of it when we beat Brady for the first time on Sunday. Thank you very much. And but they're 9-8 or whatever their record is, and they get a home playoff game over the Cowboys. But hey, I'm not counting the Cowboys out. The Bucs certainly have some flaws.
It felt like the Commanders won their bowl game. That's what it felt like, was a 6-6 Arkansas team that won at the Liberty Bowl. That same feeling has to be what Commanders fans feel after beating the Cowboys the way they did on Sunday. That was, I think there's a lot of teams. Then you saw a lot of movement yesterday with head coaches. I guess Cliff Kingsbury is probably amongst one of the headlines. Lovie Smith gone. I mean, they always, what do they call it, Black Monday or whatever, where, I mean, it is it's an ugly day in a lot of the front offices and the coaching offices.
Yeah, and I just wonder what the Houston Texans are up to when you fire coaches back-to-back years after one season. Just speaks to, and, under O'Brien, that was a pretty successful organization for several years running. So I don't know. The NFL, I've ceased trying to figure out what their motivations are and all that, and the finances just blow me away. So yeah, there was a whole lot of coaching changes, and I'm just trying to see how my Falcons could have got one or two more wins, and we would have won the division, and we'd be hosting the Cowboys on Sunday.
Tom, two more basketball questions before we let you go. Tomorrow night, Arkansas welcomes in a top 5 team in the Alabama Crimson Tide. Tommy has them as the number 1 team in the SEC. Do you expect Arkansas to win against the Crimson Tide tomorrow night?
Well, I expect them to be in the game and have a chance to win. I did watch and then listen to basically the entirety of that Alabama game, and they just never let up. And to hear Nate Oates talk, and I wrote about it in today's SEC report in the paper. Nick Saban was in the stands, and the mentality was we wanted to make them want to quit. And that's the way Nick Saban is at football. And I remember from his introductory press conference at Alabama, that's what he said. We want to make the other opponent not want to play us anymore. And they put the hammer down on Kentucky. And they still do a lot of three-point shooting, but, man, they have tall guards. They run a lot of stuff where they get lobs at the basket. Bediako did a lot of that. And they bring, I think Quinterly's coming off the bench now, and what a spark he is. They never let up, and they are going to be tough to defeat. But I think it starts with defense for Arkansas, slowing them down a little. But Arkansas has got to figure out the half-court offense. And Eric Musselman was asked about being a better cutting team, and I think that's where it starts. You have to create against good defensive teams like Auburn and Bama, back-to-back. You have to create better shots as opposed to the shot clock gets down to 6 or 7 and some guy makes an individual move.
Tom, that opponent they faced on Saturday was the Kentucky Wildcats. Cal's rumored right now to Texas from a couple different people. Do you think there's any mutual interest that he can end up in Austin?
Well, what is he, 63? I mean, at Texas, do you want John Calipari next season? I mean, maybe he'd be revitalized. He's certainly a very good coach. I guess I could see that. But Texas is a good team this year, and I think this interim coach, they've lost one game under him. There's a chance he could elevate himself into the title. I mean, if the players are into what they're doing. But I don't know. That's a long way off, and who knows what. I don't even know what Cal's buyouts numbers are, other than the fact it's a lifetime contract. Quote.
Yeah, what does that mean? Lifetime contract. I mean, you know what it means? It means the AD gets fired eventually. That's probably what it means.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe Kentucky will rebound. It's funny that they finally get like a, quote, veteran team with Sheway and Wheeler and some of these other guys and Toppin, and they don't look like they're as good as the top quarter of the SEC. But I do suspect that they'll get better, and shooting has been an issue for them as well, as it has been with Arkansas.
Yeah. Tom, we'll leave it there this morning, man. We'll talk more on Thursday about what they did on Wednesday night.
BetOnline remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from the NFL and bowl season to esports. You'll find the latest odds, team matchup info, player news, and game trends at BetOnline. BetOnline features live betting, free contests, and live scores for almost any sport or game imaginable. We're the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite leagues and events. Head to betonline.ag to join and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Make sure to use the promo code BELIEVE to receive your rewards. That's BLEAV. Bet Online, where the game starts.